Welcome everybody to another episode of Maximum Freedom with Mike. I am your host, Mike Cantrell. How is everybody doing on this fine Wednesday? It's hump day! I know everybody wants to shoot that camel, but I kind of like him. Alright guys, I'm going to kind of make today's show possibly a little bit more brief than my normal podcast, simply for the reason that I'm kind of feeling a bit under the weather. You know how you feel when you start to get that cold that comes on, the first feelings of a cold? I'm starting to kind of feel that way. Like I feel kind of basically like a turd that dropped out of a dog's butt and then got ran over by a whole pack of joggers or something. Kind of how I feel. Throat's starting to get a little scratchy and irritated, a lot of sinus drainage, that kind of thing. So I'm going to keep it kind of brief today. I'm not going to do a news segment. I'm just going to focus on solutions to the problem with our broken education system. So that's kind of going to be the focus of today. Before I jump into all that, though, I do have some exciting news. I finally, after like 2 weeks of trying, got the RSS feed for this podcast put into iTunes. So as soon as they approve it, this podcast will be available in the iTunes store. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was an incredibly frustrating experience. I've spent 2 weeks trying to get in there, and it turns out the only reason why the feed wasn't being accepted was because I didn't have a picture. Yeah, I was very frustrated by that. Technology, man. It is like one of the coolest things ever to see all this new technology coming out, but at the same time, every new piece of technology produces new headaches for me. But I digress. I don't even know what I digress even means, really. I don't know. Let's move on. I'm also going to be starting I think it's Patreon campaign. I'm going to try to have that up and running by Friday. And what that is if you guys want to, you can become a patron, and you can actually pay like $1 or $5 a month to get this podcast. And what it does is it basically helps me earn a living doing these podcasts. Because as I've said last week, or not last week, but on Monday, my goal is to build an entire media company and possibly like an internet network of individuals who want to further the message of liberty. And for me, I want to do podcasting, YouTube videos, blogging, and I want to eventually branch into homeschooling materials and other kinds of books and written stuff. So this is kind of the first step toward doing that, is just getting funding to do the podcast. So basically, the money that you give will enable me to spend more time producing higher quality content because I'll be able to support my family and pay my rent and buy food with the money that you guys put into the Patreon account. I think that's how you pronounce it. So anyway, I will give more details as that gets going around. I mean, you still be able to get the podcast for free, but if I get enough people who really love what I do and want to see me continue to build this company and see where I go with it, you can just, $1 a month isn't that much. You know what I'm saying? I'm shooting for around $6,000 a month. I think that would pretty much take care of our needs for a while every month and help us, really get this thing started. So that's going to be coming up on Friday, hopefully, as long as I don't feel like crap and can actually get it done. So, yeah. All right, guys, I want to go ahead and I want to get into the meat of today's podcast. Monday, we discussed the problems that exist within our public government-run education. Some of those had to do with the fact that, the illiteracy rate is crazy high. There's high school kids who can't read, so the quality of a government-run education sucks. The environment in which they learn in is obviously not conducive to learning. Bullying and drugs and violence and school shootings kind of put a damper on that. The whole idea of public government-run education is a progressive idea that exists to basically try to remove the child from the parent's influence and turn that child into a statist, someone who's dependent on the state to take care of them, who trusts the state explicitly, and who will basically at some point in their future life fall in line with whatever the government wants to do. And in order to do that, they need to pull kids away from parents and kind of make them view their parents as idiots and view their worldviews as foolish and see that the government has all the right answers. So that's kind of part of what public school is. And so the education system is very, very flawed and has many problems. If you go back and listen to Monday's podcast, which is Problems with the Public Education, you get a more robust, full definition and look at what I'm talking about. So today we're going to talk about the solutions to a broken education system and the fact that these solutions are absolutely critical to our children's future and to the future of our country. But these solutions are not going to be easy. They're going to hurt a lot. A lot. This is going to require sacrifice on behalf of everyone. Parents, teachers, whole communities are going to have to pull together in order to make these solutions work. But from what I've gathered in my research and reading, I don't see any other viable options, really. The first part that I want to talk about here of this solution deals with public schools themselves. There's two basic solutions that each have different components. One is solutions for public schools, how we can take the public school system and make it what it should be. And the other is homeschooling, which, in my personal opinion, is probably the better option. But I realize that it doesn't work for everyone. So, that's why we have this other option that works better for public schools. Now, some of this is going to seem kind of radical at first because this isn't the kind of stuff you hear educators or people from the Department of Education discussing because, well, quite frankly, if we follow this, they'll be out of a job. The first thing that I feel like public schools need to do, well, it's not just I feel, this is what's got to be done. Public schools need to stop taking federal and state funding. This will free them from the control of government, okay? Because, it's like the old saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. That's the way it is with education. Since the government funds it, they make it clear that they have to say in what kind of materials are used in curriculum and what kind of things are taught to the students. And that's because they pay the bills. They fund the school buildings. They fund the curriculum. They fund the teachers. He who pays the piper calls the tune. So they will continue to have control over curriculum and things like that so long as schools continue to take the funding. Now, a lot of people call for defunding at the federal level, but then, still funding schools through the state level. I don't think that's a good idea either. I still think that is just too much government interference. It's just trading one government for another. I think that the most viable option is for schools to become funded by the parents in a local community. Now, the reason why I think that's a good idea is because it brings education back to the parents, okay? It brings that responsibility back to parents. Education for your children is always the parent responsibility. It's never supposed to be the state's responsibility. And the state has, kind of usurped that authority from parents. So, when you cut off the funding and all the funding comes from the parents, kick the government out of their spot and kind of get back where they're supposed to be. So I think that is why that would work better, is because now that parents are funding the schools, they're going to care just a little bit more about what their kids are being taught. So they're going to have a larger say in the type of curriculum that their children learn at school. And the schools will reflect the values of the local community because, whatever type of parents are in the community is the type of schools you're going to have. And that would obviously be much better than the government-run system, which wants to remove parents and make children dependent on the state. Now, this is going to be expensive, obviously, because, the state and federal government give quite a bit of funding to the education system and to public schools. But schools can actually save a ton of money and improve the quality of education by not relying on the lecture method of teaching and instead adopting curriculums that enable each individual child to kind of work at their own pace. As I stated in Monday's episode, part of the problem with public education is that the slower students kind of determine the pace for the whole class. And that's not fair to the ones who grasp the material, at a normal or even accelerated rate. because then they're held back by the slower students, and the slower students are made to feel like they're stupid, even though they're not. They just learn differently. So this kind of getting away from the lecture method, which is the teacher standing up in front of the class and blah, 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 blah. Getting rid of that and enabling the children to work at their own pace allows those who excel at things to grasp the material and move on, and allows the slower students to take their time to really absorb the material and really learn it and master it. That's not something that can be done with the lecture style of learning. So that obviously would improve the quality of education for each child. And along with that, you prevent the smarter the smarter students from feeling bored and causing them to underperform academically. I was like that in school. I was pretty quick at grasping things. I still am. I'm a very fast learner. So being held at a certain rate with the rest of the class, I got bored quickly and often underperformed in my academics because I just didn't feel like it was worth the time and effort. Now, some of that was laziness, of course, but a majority of it was just straight boredom. Now, the other way that you can reduce this cost, because like I said, doing this kind of thing is going to be very, very expensive, and that probably scares the crap out of parents. But there are solutions that will make this affordable. Okay, so I just told you one. The other one is the cost of education. It can be reduced by utilizing the internet. Okay, there are millions of free resources available on the internet. I mean, that includes books, teaching videos, free online college courses. There's this one thing called the Khan Academy. It's an online school that has, I think it's like K through high school grade level curriculum for like math and all kinds of different subjects. And this guy gives this material away for free. So these kids who use the Khan Academy are getting a really good education without going to a public school and paying for the books and all that other stuff. So I mean, that would be a viable option as well. But you can save a lot of money by doing this, because then you don't have to pay as much for books to fill school libraries, because you could get most of the books free online anyway. The other thing that comes with this is, like, for example, teachers could actually stand in front of a camera and record the lecture themselves, okay, and then post it on the internet. The reason why this is so cool is because if good teachers, which only the best teachers would be able to do this, the best teachers would make excellent videos that would make it easy for children to learn the material. The slower learners, again, can watch the videos over and over. The smarter, I don't want to say smarter, but faster learners, they can move at their own pace. But what's great is you can reduce the cost of a building by utilizing the internet. Kids don't even need to go to a school building. They can access these videos from anywhere that has an internet connection. So now you reduce the cost by a ton. And there's this old saying that says, if you can reduce the cost of doing business by 90% with a new technology, then the old technology will be replaced. Well, the internet cuts out a ton of the costs. And what's also great is that, since the kids can watch the material over and over, you can guarantee that they're actually going to understand what it is they're learning and retain that knowledge later on. Like I said, the best teachers would be the ones who would be making the videos, and they, at this point, would be able to get paid what they're worth. This is where free market stuff starts to come in, okay? Teachers would be able to get paid what they're worth. So the less than stellar performing teachers are then going to be reduced to support staff. And these are going to be the people who answer kids' emails, who have questions about the material, who grade the papers, and who basically never get in front of a camera and actually do any real teaching. Because, quite frankly, they suck. Everybody's had sucky teachers. What's crappy about our current system is that sucky teachers get tenure. Sucky teachers don't get fired very often for poor performance. So our kids end up suffering because they get a less quality education. Less quality? I'm showing that I'm from public school. They get a lower quality education than what you get from a better teacher. So when you do this system and you let the free market in there, no more bad teachers with tenure and no more supporting teachers, who are terrible at their job with all kinds of benefits and things of that nature. Now, you don't have to do that anymore because now it's all based on performance. Just like how my job and your job is based on performance. I'm pretty sure that, if I do a crappy job on these podcasts and I do a crappy job as a writer, nobody's going to hire me. So I'm out of a job. That's how it is for me. That's how it is for everyone. So we need to have a way to get rid of teachers who underperform, and that will create that. The education system that we have right now is that the government has a monopoly in the education marketplace. It's not an open entry marketplace at all, so there's no competition. The type of system that we put in place that takes the control away from the government makes that marketplace open entry again. So now you have a decentralized system that allows for competition, which leads to high quality education materials at lower costs. Also a great way to save money. Now, I know one thing that people probably are wondering about is sports and other activities. I have no idea how to work that out. I really don't. I think that would have to be something left up to each community and each local school to figure out on their own. Obviously school sports is, an important part of growing up as a kid and stuff, but kids go to school to learn, and education needs to come before academics, or education needs to come before sports and other types of activities. So it's more important that our kids have quality education than the ability to join sports teams and all this other stuff. Now, whether this stuff is done in the classroom or it's done at home, this type of system restores control of a child's education to the parent where it belongs. It puts to death the whole bloated bureaucracy that we know today as the Department of Education. All the more affordable education options will give parents viable alternatives to state-run education. And those alternatives are becoming more and more popular. More and more parents these days are pulling their kids out of public schools because they're tired of the violence, they're tired of the bullying, and they're tired of their kids coming home not being educated. Eventually, this is going to phase out the Department of Education. It's not going to be necessary anymore. This is really similar to how the UPS, FedEx, email, and Facebook have almost completely phased out the U.S. Postal Service. Not many people really need to use the Postal Service anymore. That's why they've decided to cut out mail on Saturdays, is because the budget for the U.S. Postal Service is shrinking because people are not using it very much anymore. There's no need to. There are other options. There are private companies who can handle the mail, and most of us use email and Facebook messaging anyway. I think that this solution is the best solution, and you can read more about this solution and the whole thing with homeschooling way more in depth if you get Ron Paul's School Revolution. That book was just mind-blowing. It really opened up my eyes to a lot of things, and I highly recommend that you check it out. Now, I want to move on to talking about homeschooling. Okay, now I am a huge advocate of homeschooling. I'm a homeschool parent, and in my personal opinion, this really is the best option. Okay, as far as the quality of education and life experience that your child can receive from homeschooling, it far outweighs what they would ever be able to get in a public school. Now, I know that it's not right for every family, though, so it's not like one of those things that if you don't do this, you're a bad parent, and I don't think that at all. One of the problems that has kept a lot of parents from doing homeschool is the cost. Everybody assumes that it's going to be super, super expensive, and there was one time that it was expensive. In the 80s and 90s, homeschooling was extremely expensive. But, just like I said earlier, we have one of the greatest, most innovative resources available to us in the history of mankind: the internet. There's not much that you can't find on the internet. Okay, because of this, homeschooling is way, way, way less expensive. I mean, you can get a child a child can get a first-rate education almost entirely for free. And even though you may not be able to find material that's free, for the most part, you can get a good curriculum that covers an entire year for like $200. That's pretty cheap. But most parents, like my family, we don't spend a whole lot on materials. We get most of the stuff online for free. We put together our own curriculum that covers everything the kids need to learn, and I mean, it takes care of everything, and it's extremely cheap. Our biggest expense is printer ink and paper. A lot of worksheets to print out. But, you know, thanks to the internet, that's made homeschooling so much more affordable than it's been in years past. One of the other benefits of doing homeschooling is that, you know, as a parent, you get to directly shop or even create the curriculum that your child learns from. This is huge. This truly is a parent taking full 100% responsibility for their child's education. And this ensures that the parent's value system gets passed on to the child without the state coming in and trying to alter that or change that. And this also means that, you know, since you are picking the curriculum for your child, nobody knows your child better than you do. You know how they learn best. This gives you an opportunity to make sure that not only is your value system passed along, not only are you now 100% responsible for the child's education, but you can pick a curriculum or create one that matches your child's learning style. I mean, that's freaking fantastic. That's kind of what we do. We create our own curriculum. As of right now, I mean, we use bits and pieces of different things that people put out, but primarily we make our own curriculum. And I'm telling you, it's a fantastic experience. It's really awesome to see your child take responsibility for their education, and even at a young age, and to see them grow and blossom this way, and to see them develop intellectually, and to start grasping concepts that, you know, you remember when you held that child in your hand for the first time, you know, that little baby butt, and you're like, all the kid could do was cry, and now she's, you know, articulating Christian theology to you, or talking to you about the themes of Little Women, or, you know, it's really crazy. So it's been an awesome experience, and I highly recommend that if you are going to, you know, take the plunge and do homeschooling, I would say consider making your own curriculum. It's not as tough as it sounds. Again, children get to work at their own pace and in a safe learning environment. There's no bullying at home. Unless you have older brothers or sisters, then that might be, you know, part of a problem. But that kind of bullying is a lot different. You know, you don't have to worry about your kid getting shot all up. Yeah, it just reduces a lot of the stress. And since the child is away from the distractions of public school, they learn better. They really do. Kids can get socialization from their parents, from, you know, clubs, athletics, church groups, local activities. This is one of the things that I hear the most as far as an objection to homeschooling is,
what about socialization? They're going to grow up to be socially awkward.
First off, how does it make sense to send a kid to learn how to function in society to someone other than the parent in a place where he's learning socialization from other kids his age who don't know how to act in social settings? That's like me, who knows nothing about cars, going to another guy who knows nothing about cars and hoping that he can show me how to fix the engine. I mean, that just sounds stupid. Kids get socialization from their parents, primarily. That's where they should learn how to function in social circles. They should see their parents interacting with other people. They should learn from other kids in their neighborhood, sure. They should hang out with their kids and learn to work through problems, you know. They need to have play groups. They need to go and spend time with other kids, but not in the same room for 7 hours a day. My goodness, that's craziness. They can get plenty of socialization from local sports or church groups, that kind of thing, from parents primarily. You don't need to go to a public school for 7 hours to do that. And in fact, if you do, I mean, what are you really learning? You can't learn how to do something from someone else who doesn't know how to do it. It's common sense, people. One of the things I love about homeschooling is that as kids grow up, they learn to take responsibility for their own education. And they do this at a much younger age, okay? Most kids in modern-day public schools and in our modern-day culture, they don't really start taking responsibility for their education until they're in college. And by the time they get to college, they have no clue how to actually take care of their own education stuff. It's just like this whole new world. They're like, you mean there's nobody there to tell me I need to do my homework? There's nobody there to wake me up for class? Wait, what am I supposed to do? I can't handle this. A lot of kids wash out freshman year because of this, because they have no clue how to handle themselves. They've never had to take responsibility for their own education. Most homeschool kids, usually, if they're taught, end up taking an interest in their own education and taking responsibility for their education by the time they're in like 6th grade. And that is awesome, because then this becomes a normal way of life. You know, learning to be responsible on your own without being told that you need to do your work and things like that. All of a sudden, this kid is doing these things on his own. You know, by the time he hits 6th or 7th grade, that right there in itself is light years beyond what kids are taught in public school. Another great advantage to doing homeschooling is that if you have a kid who's in high school and he's homeschooling, that kid can take CLEP exams and get full college credit for an entire semester for whatever subject it is for way cheaper than they would pay for classes, room and board, and all that. There is a story in Ron Paul's book about a young man, who said, I want to graduate from college the same time I graduate from high school. So this kid took CLEP exams like crazy and ended up getting a bachelor's degree in business administration by the time he graduated high school. He would take homeschooling courses about business and things like that. Then he would go pay the fee, take the CLEP exam, and then get full college credit. He ended up getting an entire 4-year degree from an accredited university, a well-respected university. That's crazy. And I think he said the entire cost was $13,000, and he ended up working a part-time job all through high school and paid almost the entire cost himself, and then borrowed some money from his parents, which he paid back in less than 12 months after he graduated at 18 with both a high school diploma and a 4-year bachelor's degree in business. CLEP exams will save your children lots of money, lots of debt, and allow them to get a college education and a degree that will give them a leg up in getting a job. Although, in all honesty, college degrees these days, they're not really what they used to be. But, you know, it never hurts. Homeschoolers also get to, set their own schedules. That's one of the perks of being a homeschool parent is you don't have to get up at the butt crack of dawn to get your kid up out of bed and ship them out the door to school. No, if you want to sleep in till 9 or 10 o'clock, you could sleep in till 9 or 10 o'clock. It's wonderful. Now, along with that, as kids get older and they can set their own schedule and work at their own pace, they can get part-time jobs. They can work on service projects for other people. This is especially great if you are someone who goes to church. Even if you don't go to church, it's a great idea. That get your kid involved in local community activities. Like helping at the soup kitchen or something like that. That's a service activity. Get them hands-on experience. Let them shadow a business owner. Let them take on kind of an apprentice-type role and learn how to run a business firsthand. That firsthand experience will end up being much more valuable than a few hours spent in a classroom. It ends up, helping a child to learn a good work ethic, and they end up being more well-rounded all the way around. So you just can't go wrong there. Now, there is a lot of good curriculums out there to choose from, but I'll be honest with you, I looked into Ron Paul's homeschool curriculum, and it is pretty darn good. The curriculum for, I think it's kindergarten through 6th grade is free, and from junior high up it's like $200 a year, but you get access to all the materials and to forums where the kids can interact with each other and kind of help each other learn and grow. So, it's worth the investment. And he does some really cool stuff that I haven't seen other homeschool curriculums even consider. One of the things that he does is he actually has materials that teach a kid, I think it's at the high school level, how to run an online business, how to start a home-based business. That's amazing because that's the wave of the future. More and more people are working at home. That's the way culture is shifting and things are changing. He also has some focus in the curriculum on social media. So he has this thing where he requires the students to have a YouTube account and a blog, and they have to take what they learn and basically teach it to someone else to speak about it. This helps them learn public speaking abilities and skills. Helps them, learn how to do video editing and all of these things, because that is the wave of the future. More and more businesses are starting to go toward YouTube than traditional avenues of business advertising. And he also, if I'm not mistaken, has a copywriting course for advertisement stuff in this, which is amazing because ad copywriting is a great industry. There is a lot of money to be made there. If you can write good ad copy, you're a commodity right there. So I just think it's really awesome, and it's really well-rounded and has some stuff in it that some other curriculums don't really have. And I think it's worth checking out. I think it's like ronpaulcurriculum.com or something like that. If that's not the right address, just get on Google Ron Paul Curriculum. It's really cool. And he doesn't dictate every single aspect of the curriculum. He tells you what you're going to cover for the month, and then it's up to you to go get the resources. So it's kind of like just a loose plan, and then he gives you some guidance through there that will help kind of lead the way. But it's up to you to provide the materials and for you to go through things with your child. So I think that's really cool. It's a way to provide a curriculum without trying to take over, so that's really cool. Our experience, and my experience personally as homeschooling our kids, has been awesome. I love being able to have my kid home, to be able to see her whenever I want. She loves the fact that I work from home because we can spend time together every day at lunchtime. It allows me to build a really deep relationship with my child, and it's precious, man. If you're a dad, a good dad, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Every minute you get is just precious and amazing. I'm grateful for it every day. I wouldn't trade homeschooling for anything. I wouldn't trade working from home for anything. Even if it is harder, it's worth it. I've got to watch my daughter Rebecca grow and learn all of these different things, and to see her develop a passion for learning. I had that same passion when I was a kid, but school kind of squelched it for me. But to see that in her and know that public school isn't going to squash that for her, it's awesome. She's so smart. And, excuse me, it's not because I'm somebody special. It's because she's given an opportunity to explore and to learn at her own pace. So, to her, learning is wide open, and it's an all-day thing. It's not within set 7 hours that she learns. She's learning all day. And it's just awesome to see it happen. If you have an opportunity to do it, please consider homeschooling. It's a lot of work. It's very tough. But in the long run, it pays dividends for you and your child. Your child gets a high-quality education in a safe environment. You get to spend more time with your kid, building that relationship that'll have memories with it that'll last a lifetime. And it's totally worth it. All right, guys, before I wrap this up, I want to talk to you guys about the fact that I'm going to be making an entrance. Hey, guys, before I wrap up, I want to also talk about the fact that my wife and I are going to be making an entrance into the marketplace to create homeschooling materials ourselves. I feel like there's kind of a hole in the market when it comes to history and civics materials. A lot of the history stuff out there at your libraries or in your public schools are revisionist in nature, or they don't really give a true understanding of the principles of liberty and freedom. So my wife and I have seen this hole in the market for ourselves and have decided that at some point here in the next few months, we want to take the leap to create these materials for our children and for other children. So I want you guys to be aware of what I'm doing there, and to know that I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter here at some point in the future to try to fund those endeavors. So I just wanted to let you know and be aware of what I'm doing, because in the future I'm going to be giving you updates. And those of you who are considering homeschooling, just keep tuning in, and I'll keep giving you updates as things go along, so you know where we're at in the process and when the books become available. If you're interested and you like the material, you can purchase it, and I would love to be a part of helping you educate your child. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Hope it was beneficial for you. Hope you learned some stuff. Hope it made you think, at least. I'll have a new episode back up on Friday. Hopefully I'll be full strength by then. Starting to feel worse as time goes on here, so we'll see. May have to push Friday's episode off, I'm not sure. Keep listening for updates on the podcast being put on iTunes. That should happen within the next few days. When it does, I'll make sure that it gets into the very next episode of Maximum Freedom with Mike, and you guys can subscribe to it on iTunes and tell all your friends about it, and we can spread the word of liberty far and wide and hopefully start rescuing this nation. Alright guys, make sure that you follow me on Twitter. It's srebel1983, srebel1983. Alright guys, that is it for me today. I'm out of here. Y'all have a great one.